My friends, what is happening in Beijing right now is without a doubt the most significant moment in American foreign policy in decades. If not explosive, yes, my friends, Air Force One has just touched down in the Chinese capital. To the average observer, it's just an official visit after a 9-year hiatus. For the elite analyst, that's you following along with me here, what we're seeing is not a visit, it's a coordinated diplomatic invasion. The highest alert came from Beijing's own official terminology. They didn't call this a summit meeting. They classified it as a state visit plus. State visit plus. What is that? In the coded grammar of Chinese diplomacy, the term plus is not a courtesy. It's a sign of reverence mixed with fear. It's the recognition that the guest didn't come to ask for favors. He came to present the terms of a new order. The thesis here is very clear. Trump didn't go to Beijing to negotiate soybean tariffs. He went to demonstrate that he controls the valves that allow the dragon to breathe. The impact of this is an unprecedented polarity reversal in the global balance of power. For the first time in almost a decade, the American president enters the Middle Kingdom holding all the cards, all the levers, and most importantly, China's economic oxygen. China is a steel dragon. But even dragons need oxygen to breathe fire, and China's oxygen flows through a single pipeline, the Strait of Hormuz. And Trump didn't go to Beijing to fight, he went to show that his hand is already on the valve. And before we decode the army of CEOs that got off that gigantic plane of Donald Trump's, I need your technical insight down here. Do you believe that China still has the strength to withstand this pressure? Or has Xi Jinping already accepted that the mandate of heaven has changed hands? Comment here now. Have the tables turned, or is China holding out? I read every analysis. Because here is where we separate those who just see the wallpaper from those who understand the structure. And my friends, Trump didn't get to China on his own. He brought along the entire arsenal of the world's most powerful CEOs. Soft power is in action, and it's made of steel. Trump didn't just bring career diplomats with folders full of useless memos. He brought an army of economic and technological heavyweights that Beijing had never seen step off an aircraft. On Air Force One, sitting next to the president, were the holders of the keys to the future. The presence of Jensen Huang from NVIDIA is the technical detail you need to keep in mind. Huang was not on the original list. He flew to Alaska to intercept Air Force One at the last second after a direct call from Trump on Tuesday morning. China is addicted to AI chips, and NVIDIA holds the monopoly on the hardware that powers China's surveillance system, processing, and military modernization. Having the owner of NVIDIA on a Trump plane is a direct message. You control the rare earths, but I control the brain of your artificial intelligence. Next to him, Elon Musk and Tim Cook. Musk represents the Starlink satellite infrastructure and the electric mobility that China is trying to dominate but now depends on American architecture. Cook represents the production network that supports China's export-driven GDP. In total, 17 CEOs from giants like BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, Boeing, and Qualcomm are on Donald Trump's negotiating table. To understand the real weight of this delegation, we need to look at recent history. Take the case of NVIDIA. In less than 3 years, it went from being a graphics card manufacturer to the most valuable company in the world, essential for national defense. Its H100 and H200 chips are the oil wells of the 21st century. China tried, through espionage and reverse engineering, to create its own advanced lithography, but failed miserably in its precision software effort. In practice, Trump brought the key holders inside the Great Hall of the People. He showed that the technology China most needs to avoid collapse is sitting at the dinner table, but will only be accessible under Washington's terms. It's the use of corporate power as an extension of military force. If China loses access to these 17 men, its operating system simply stops running. And if you look behind the scenes of this visit, you'll understand why Beijing is in a panic. Normally, a state visit of this scale is choreographed months in advance. Schedules are locked in, protocols are reviewed exhaustively. This time, China's official announcement only came 2 days in advance. 2 days? This is unprecedented in the diplomacy of the Communist Party. In the party's internal language, this means that things were on fire behind the scenes. They were in crisis mode, trying to finalize a schedule that refused to be locked in. And the reason? Washington sent the ultimatum 10 days earlier. The Strait of Hormuz and the crisis in Iran would have to be front and center at the table. There's no negotiation, no stalling. This is what we're going to deal with in this meeting, said Trump. Beijing desperately tried to take this topic off the agenda but failed. The side effect of this failure was the Chinese vice premier, the man who controls the economy of 1.4 billion people, rushing to South Korea just a day before he was to meet with the United States Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. But why the emergency, you ask me? Because China realized that the noose was tightening. Iran had just rejected an American proposal. And Washington suspects that China is using railway corridors in Russia and Central Asia to send dual-use goods to Tehran. Because they can be used for civilian purposes, can also be used for military purposes, and pay attention to the strategic nexus. The United States now controls the flow of energy that powers China through military dominance in Hormuz. That has always been the big move by the United States to confront China. 10 months ago, Trump was desperately looking for other suppliers of rare minerals because China was shutting off the taps. With that already resolved, and with Brazil stepping in as the second largest supplier of this element so crucial to American defense, China came onto the radar. Up until now, China had been trying to use Taiwan as leverage, suggesting that any escalation in the Middle East would give Beijing the freedom to move on the island. But Trump reversed the logic. He showed that if China makes a move in Taiwan, the United States doesn't need to fire a shot in Taipei. They simply turn off the tap. In Hormuz, it's an energy checkmate applied with algorithmic precision. And in the midst of this geopolitical whirlwind happening right now in the heart of China, Xi Jinping made a highly symbolic decision. Did he take Trump to the Temple of Heaven? This is the place where ancient emperors performed sacred rituals to affirm Tianxia, the mandate of heaven. Xi is not sightseeing. He was trying to present China as a 5,000-year-old civilization. Did you get the message? You're not dealing with the kid Trump. Well, this message tries to evoke historical respect that he knows Trump has for strong leaders and ancient traditions. Tianxia is not just a philosophical concept. It's Xi's attempt to present an imperial China to an American leader who only respects strength and tradition. But for the attentive analyst, the explosive detail wasn't the setting, but who was translating the words. Reports indicate that the only interpreter at the private meeting between the two leaders was Xi Jinping's own daughter, educated at Harvard and fluent in English. My friends, allow me to make a very important observation. Look at how hypocritical dictators are. Xi Jinping's daughter was educated at Harvard. In the United States of America, translating for you, communist regime, yes, socialism, yes, a dictatorship. But for us, for my family members, it's the best of both worlds. My daughter is going to graduate from Harvard. Xi Jinping, my friends, and he's not the only one. Iran's dictators also send their children to study in the United States and Europe. The leftist globalist activists who condemn capitalism also send their children to study at Harvard or the best British universities. My friends, don't fall for this anymore. Now, going back to the meeting between Xi and Trump. The fact that Xi's daughter is directly translating the conversation with Trump reveals something very dangerous. That was a cry of political isolation, because why would a dictator who controls the most powerful authoritarian system on earth use his own daughter as an interpreter? The answer is the collapse of trust. Xi Jinping no longer trusts his own diplomatic apparatus. He fears that his official translators might be agents of rival factions within the Communist Party, or that they might distort his words to create crises. This is directly connected to the recent military purges that happened in China. High-ranking generals have disappeared, the leadership of the missile force has been decapitated, and Xi hasn't left China since last October. He skipped the BRICS summit, something unthinkable a year ago. The signal is clear. Xi Jinping is surrounded by internal enemies and uses his family as the last line of defense for his communication. He is vulnerable, and Trump knows this very well. Sitting down without advisors allows Trump to assess whether the man in front of him still commands the system or if he is just a facade for the party. Now pay attention. To understand why China lost leverage, we need to talk about physics and logistics. For China, the Strait of Hormuz is the second most critical choke point on the planet. The first is the Strait of Malacca. Without Malacca, China is finished. But without Hormuz, it doesn't have oil, because 20% of the world's oil passes through there. You already know that. But for China, that number is deadly. Between 40 and 50% of its energy imports depend on that channel. Through Operation Epic Fury, the United States not only degraded Iran's military capability, they destroyed the financial architecture that supported China as Tehran's guarantor. Because in July 2025, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Wei promised full support to Iran against American bullying. Yes, my friends, they even used that word. Months later, the Trump Doctrine, massive military force applied simultaneously with economic strangulation, left Iran on its knees and China without its main asset in the Middle East. China's structural vulnerability today is its energy dependence. Air Force One landed right on that wound. Trump arrived with the doctrine of strangulation. If Beijing doesn't cooperate on Iran's denuclearization and stability in Hormuz, the United States keeps the tap closed. The logistics of closing Hormuz are simple for someone with the navy that the United States has. A total blockade isn't necessary. Just the uncertainty of maritime insurance and active patrolling are enough to paralyze the flow. China, although it is still importing oil, has lost a lot in these last few months. The doctrine that involves contact with the doctrine regarding Hormuz. It is part of the Hormuz Doctrine. Its global expansion, the Belt and Road, depends on oxygen that it does not produce and does not protect. Trump has seized the dragon's oxygen, he seized its oxygen, and the dragon needs to breathe. While the drama unfolds in Beijing, the rest of the world feels the domino effect. In Russia, the cost of Putin's war has finally become public. Independent outlets have revealed that the number of Russian military deaths has already surpassed 352,000. Putin is exhausted and is starting to look for a way out. China, which used to be Russia's economic shield, is now too busy trying to save its own neck in Beijing to keep financing Putin's adventure. At the same time, Taiwan has just signed a $25 billion check to buy American weapons. They are acquiring the HIMARS system, Javelin missiles, and drone defense technologies. Taiwan understood that the best defense against swarms is precision technology. China looks at Taiwan and sees the cost of invasion, which has become prohibitive. Especially when its own economy is being suffocated by a trade war it didn't expect to lose. And my friends, the verdict is inevitable. What we will see in Beijing over the next few days is not a meeting of equals. It's a historic reckoning. Trump did not come as a supplicant. He arrived as the leader of a nation that has shown in the deserts and skies of the Middle East that the West's power projection is still unmatched. He brought the arsenal of democracies in the form of CEOs and the control of energy arteries in the form of military dominance. Xi Jinping, on the other side, showed signs of an empire in retreat, using ancient rituals and family secrets to try to hide the fragility of a system that hide the war of data and energy. The moral of this story is that brute mass and GDP size do not beat algorithmic intelligence and control of the checkpoints. China has discovered that its mandate from heaven is conditioned by the permission of those who control the system's oxygen. Now pay attention. The board has shifted, and those who don't understand this new code will just be pawns in someone else's story. And if you want access to more of this intelligence discussion, we've created our own discussion bunker. Free from censorship, free from whining, from the endless complaints about this government and this media. So get access to the map that shows you what's really happening in the world. My friends, the QR code is showing up on the screen. The link is in the first pinned comment and in the video description. And there's more. We created a channel for series and movies without woke culture, with analyses and movie tips, which even cover this conflict that's happening in the Middle East in recent months. So enjoy our channel, a curated selection of series and movies for you to enjoy and have fun with your family on the weekend. The link is also in the video description, in the first pinned comment, and here on the card. Come check out our analyses. My friend, now shield your mind, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like on the video. Once again, it takes a lot of work to make this. I'm Shimon Oliveira, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.